Okay, so um, lately have had my eye on this new bike that's coming out, and it's gotten a lot of buzz.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you know a little bit about it too, right? The
Yeah.
the 2025 Honda Dax 125.
I do, yeah. It's getting a lot of attention for good reason, I think.
Yeah, and we've got a really cool review of it here.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? We could do a deep dive into this and see what all the hype is about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah. And so this is it's not just a new motorcycle. This is kind of a revival of a classic.
It is, yeah.
Back from the 60s, right?
Yeah, that's right. Back in the swinging 60s,
Yeah.
he had this, this kind of mini bike craze going
Yeah.
on, and the Honda Dax was right there in the thick of it. It was this, like, fun little runabout,
Yeah.
I mean, they're still popular today, those original ones.
I bet.
But yeah, so they're bringing it back with kind of a modern twist on it.
Yeah.
But they're really keeping that classic retro look.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like they're marketing it towards, people who are maybe city dwellers
Right.
and people who are commuting and just, enthusiasts of these kind of lightweight fun bikes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a bike that's easy to live with,
Yeah.
and then fun to ride.
Yeah. Well, and there are a few things right off the bat that, when I was looking at the specs in the review that really jumped out at me.
Oh yeah, like what?
Well, it's got, the 124cc engine.
Yeah.
It's got that semi-automatic transmission,
Yeah.
no clutch lever,
Yep.
low seat height, comfortable two-up seating, compact frame, so it looks really maneuverable.
Absolutely.
LED lighting, disc brakes with ABS, so that's a big plus.
Big safety feature.
It's huge. Yeah, and then improved suspension, which is always good to hear.
Always, yeah. Especially if you're going to be riding it in the city.
Absolutely.
Right.
So let's kind of go into a little bit deeper dive here and look at these specs.
Okay, sounds good.
So, first of all, it's got this 124cc air-cooled single-cylinder engine.
Yeah, so that's, pretty standard for this kind of bike. It's not a huge engine.
Right.
But it's got enough power to get you around, and, it's air-cooled, so it's simple.
Right.
And it's reliable.
Yeah, and it's a four-stroke.
Yes, 4-stroke, so,
Yeah.
good on gas.
Yeah.
And the review mentions that it puts out about 9.4 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, and the torque is 10.8 newton meters at 5,000 RPM.
Yeah. And so, for the size of the bike and how they're, suggesting that people ride it
Right.
in the city and, kind of around town,
Yeah.
that seems like it would be pretty adequate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're not going to win any races with it, but
Right.
you'll definitely be able to get up to speed and keep up with traffic, no problem.
Yeah. And then there's that transmission. It's a 4-speed semi-automatic.
Yeah. And this is a really cool feature.
Yeah.
Because it basically means there's no clutch lever. So all you do is you just shift up and down with your foot, and the
Right.
bike does the rest.
Right.
So it's super easy to use, especially if you're a new rider.
Yeah, I was going to say, for somebody who've never ridden a motorcycle before, this would be like a great
Yeah,
starter bike.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very approachable.
Yeah. And especially in, heavy traffic situations, stop and go.
Right.
You can really concentrate on just the traffic around you and not worry about that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's less tiring to ride too, because you're not constantly working the clutch.
Right.
So it's just a really nice feature for commuting, I think.
Yeah. And then the frame itself is made of pressed steel.
Yeah, so pressed steel is interesting because it's very strong.
Yeah.
But it's also relatively inexpensive to produce.
Okay.
So it kind of gives you that, that good balance of durability and affordability.
Yeah.
And it also keeps the weight down, which is, important for a bike like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, they also talk about the suspension and, they're really touting the improved suspension in this bike.
Yeah.
So up front, we've got a 31 millimeter telescopic fork.
Okay.
And in the rear, we've got twin shock absorbers.
Yep.
And the review mentions that this improved suspension is really good at soaking up bumps and, road irregularities.
Right.
Which is a blessing on any city street.
Yeah, absolutely. Potholes, cracks, you name it.
Especially.
You don't want to be getting jarred around on those.
Right.
So it's good that they've paid attention to the suspension.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for bringing it to a stop, we've got hydraulic disc brakes, both front and rear.
Yeah.
And on the front, we also have ABS, the anti-lock braking system.
Yes, and that's a really important safety feature.
Huge.
Especially, for a bike like this that's aimed at newer riders
Okay.
potentially, because it can really help prevent those kind of panic braking situations where you might lock up the front wheel
Right.
and go down,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So ABS is definitely a big plus.
Yeah. Well, and for the type of riding that they're envisioning people doing on this bike,
Right.
that's really important.
Especially in the city. Yeah. Cars stopping suddenly.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk about the wheels and the tires.
Okay.
So it's got 12-inch alloy wheels,
Yep.
12E70 tire at the front, and a wider 1370 at the rear.
Okay. So that's a good combination for this type of bike.
Yeah.
The 12-inch wheels, keep it nice and agile and easy to maneuver.
Right.
And the wider rear tire gives you a little bit more contact patch with the road.
Right.
So you get a little bit more grip and stability.
Yeah. Yeah. So the fuel tank capacity is 3.8 liters.
Yeah. So that's not huge,
No.
but it's adequate for a bike of this size.
Right.
And, the bike itself is only 107 kilograms,
That's light.
which is incredibly light. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you could pick this bike up and carry it around if you needed to. I was going to say you could almost throw that in the back of a truck
Pretty much.
if you needed to transport it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's remarkably light.
Yeah. So seat height is 775 millimeters.
Okay, so that's pretty low.
Yeah.
That means it's going to be very accessible to a lot of different riders.
Right.
People who are shorter or people who are newer to riding.
Right.
They can easily flat-foot it at a stop,
Right.
which can give you a lot of confidence.
Yeah. And the review estimates that the top speed is around 90 kilometers per hour.
Okay, so not a speed demon.
No.
But, that's not what this bike is about.
Right.
It's designed for, around town riding, commuting, maybe some back roads.
Yeah.
But it's not really meant for highway use.
Right. Right. Now, the fuel efficiency is pretty impressive.
It is, yeah. They're saying around 60 kilometers per liter.
Yeah. So you're going to be...
Which is amazing.
Yeah, you're going to be going a long way on a tank of gas.
Yeah, you're going to be saving a lot of money at the pump with this bike.
Right, right. So, beyond all the numbers here, what are the real standout features that they really keep coming back to in this review?
Well, I think the first one is just that classic mini bike styling.
Yeah.
It's got that T-frame design, which is, that kind of iconic look from the 1970s.
Yeah.
And it's got that pressed steel frame, which, not only is it strong, but it also looks cool.
Right.
And then they've mixed in some modern touches as well, like the LED lighting.
Right.
Which is brighter and more efficient than the old incandescent bulbs.
Right, right.
And then it's got a digital instrument panel,
Right.
which is, nice and clear and modern looking.
Yeah. And they also mentioned that it's got these cool retro color options.
Oh, yeah. Like what kind of colors?
Like Pearl Nebula Red
Okay.
and Pearl Cadet Gray.
That sounds cool.
And then just yellow.
Yeah, very retro.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now that 124cc engine,
Yeah.
seems like they really got it right with that in terms of, what it's designed for.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's a tried and true engine,
Yeah.
Honda's been making these, small capacity engines for a long time.
Right.
And they're very reliable.
Right.
And they're fuel efficient.
Right.
And, 9.4 horsepower, 10.8 newton meters of torque.
Yeah.
That's plenty for getting around town.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the fuel injection system.
Yeah, so that's another modern touch.
Right.
The old Dax had a carburetor.
Right.
But this one's got fuel injection, which means it's going to be more efficient.
Right.
And it's going to be cleaner burning.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about coordinating the clutch and the throttle.
Right.
It's just twist and go.
Yeah.
So it's just a really nice feature.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what about the comfort? Because that's really important, especially if you're going to be commuting on this every day.
It is, yeah. Well, they've done a few things to make it more comfortable.
Yeah.
So first of all, that 775 millimeter seat height.
Right.
That means that pretty much anybody can flat-foot it at a stop.
Right.
Which is going to give you a lot of confidence.
Right.
The seat itself is nice and wide and flat.
Okay.
So it's comfortable for both the rider and a passenger.
Okay.
And then, they've got those improved suspension components.
Right.
So the telescopic forks up front and the twin shock absorbers in the rear.
Right.
And they're saying that those do a really good job of absorbing bumps and keeping the ride smooth.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the big selling points of a bike like this is how compact and agile it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in the city.
Yeah, I mean, you can just zip through traffic.
Right.
You can lane split if that's legal where you are.
Right.
It's easy to park.
Yeah.
It's just a very nimble little bike.
Yeah, and at only 107 kilograms, I mean, you could practically pick that thing up
Pretty much,
and
yeah.
put it wherever you needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they talk about the 12-inch wheels and the wider tires.
Yeah.
So, good grip and stability.
Yeah. I mean, those 12-inch wheels, they can be a little bit twitchy sometimes,
Right.
but they've put a wider tire on the back to
Right.
kind of give it a little bit more stability, so
Right.
it should be pretty sure-footed.
Right. Now that advanced braking system with the ABS on the front wheel.
Yeah, that's a really important safety feature.
Yeah.
A lot of bikes in this class don't have ABS.
Right.
So it's good to see that Honda has included it on the Dax.
Yeah, and it also kind of sets it apart for the competition.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then finally, they keep talking about how practical this bike is and with that fuel efficiency. I mean, it really is.
It is, yeah. 60 kilometers per liter is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's better than some scooters.
Right.
So you're going to be able to go a long way on a tank of gas.
Right. Okay, so how does it stack up against the competition?
All right, well, they compare it to a few different bikes in the review.
Yeah.
The Honda Monkey 125,
Okay.
the Honda Grom 125, and the Kawasaki Z125 Pro.
Okay, so let's start with the Monkey.
Okay, so the Monkey is kind of interesting because it's also got that retro styling,
Yeah.
but it's maybe even more retro than the Dax.
Okay.
It's got like that real classic Monkey look.
Right.
It shares the same engine as the Dax.
Okay.
So it's got the same power and fuel efficiency,
Right.
but it's got a 5-speed manual transmission.
Okay.
So that's, a little bit more engaging for experienced riders,
Right.
but maybe not as easy to use for beginners.
Right. And is it about the same price point?
It's a little bit more expensive.
Okay. Yeah. So what about the Grom?
The Grom is kind of the sporty one of the bunch.
Okay.
It's got a little bit more power than the Dax.
Okay.
It's got a manual transmission as well.
Okay.
And it's just got a more aggressive riding position.
Okay.
It's kind of more leaned forward,
Yeah.
more like a sport bike.
So it's not as comfortable maybe for just kind of cruising around?
Oh. Yeah, not as comfortable for long rides.
Right. And then what about the Kawasaki?
The Kawasaki Z125
Yeah.
Pro.
Well.
So that one is the budget option. It's
Okay.
the least expensive of the four.
Okay.
It's got similar power to the Dax,
Okay.
but it's got a little bit less torque.
Okay.
And it's got a 4-speed manual transmission.
Okay.
But importantly, it doesn't have ABS.
Ah.
So that's a big safety consideration,
Yeah.
especially if you're a new rider.
So out of all those lens,
Hmm.
what do you think are the real strengths of the Dax?
I think the biggest one is that semi-automatic transmission. I mean, that's just a really great feature for anybody who's new to riding or anybody who just wants a really easy bike to ride around town.
Right.
I think the retro styling is also a big plus.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool looking bike.
Yeah.
And it's got that classic Honda reliability.
Yeah.
They're known for making bikes that just run forever.
Right. So we talked about the good stuff.
Mm.
What about the bad stuff? Are there any drawbacks here?
Well, the biggest one is probably the top speed,
Right.
90 kilometers per hour.
Mhm.
That's fine for the city.
Yeah.
But if you want to do any highway riding,
Right.
that's not going to be enough.
Right. What else?
The fuel tank is also a little bit small,
Yeah.
3.8 liters.
Right.
You're going to be filling up pretty often.
Especially if you're commuting every day.
Especially if you have a long commute, yeah.
Right. What else?
Some people might not like the lack of a manual transmission.
Okay.
Some people really want to have that control over the gears.
Right.
But for me, I think the semi-automatic is a great feature,
Yeah.
but it just depends on your personal preference.
Right. Anything else?
There's not a lot of storage space.
Oh, right.
There's no under-seat storage or anything like that.
No glove compartment.
No glove compartment.
Yeah.
So if you need to carry stuff, you're going to have to get a backpack or something.
Right. Okay. Well, this review also has a really great FAQ section.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go through some of these because I think these are questions that a lot of people are going to have. So first of all, how much is this thing going to cost?
Yeah, everyone wants to know the price.
Right.
So they're saying it's going to start at around $4,199 US.
Okay.
But, that could vary depending on where you live.
Right. Dealer markups and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then another one that comes up a lot is at top speed.
Yeah. So they're saying 90 to 100 kilometers per hour.
Okay.
Which is, what we talked about before.
Right. What about the horsepower and the torque?
Yeah. So they're listing 9.4 horsepower
Okay.
at 7,000 RPM.
Right.
and 10.8 newton meters of torque at 5,000 RPM.
Okay, so, adequate for what it's designed to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. What about fuel efficiency? Because they touched on that, but I think people want specifics.
Yeah, they're saying around 60 kilometers per liter,
Okay.
which is excellent.
Yeah, yeah. Does it have ABS? Because that's a big one.
It does, yes.
Okay, good.
Front and rear disc brakes with ABS.
Good, good, good. And then there's a question in here comparing it directly to the Grom.
Oh, right.
So what are the main differences?
So the main differences are the transmission.
Okay.
The Dax has that semi-automatic, the Grom has a manual,
Right.
and then the riding position.
Okay.
The Dax is more upright,
Yeah.
the Grom is more leaned forward,
Yeah.
so it's more of a sporty riding position.
Okay. Can you take this thing off-road?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So they're saying that it can handle some light off-road riding,
Yeah.
like gravel roads or fire trails,
Right.
but it's not really designed for serious off-roading.
Okay. Like a dirt bike?
Yeah, like a dirt bike
Right.
or a dual sport.
Okay. So what colors does it come in? Because that's always a big one.
Yeah, so they're saying it's going to be available in Pearl Nebula Red,
Okay.
Pearl Cadet Gray, and Yellow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Those are all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this a good bike for beginners?
They're saying yes.
Okay.
And I would agree with that.
Yeah.
The semi-automatic transmission makes it very easy to ride.
Right.
The low seat height makes it easy to handle.
Right.
And it's a very forgiving bike.
Okay.
It's not super powerful.
Right.
So it's not going to get away from you.
Right. Right. And finally, is it street legal?
Yes,
It
it
is.
is. Oh, good.
It comes with all the necessary equipment.
Right.
Headlights, taillights, turn signals, mirrors, horn. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So, in wrapping this all up, then it seems like this bike would be great for...
Yeah, it seems like a great bike for commuting,
Yeah.
around town riding,
Yeah.
running errands,
Yeah.
just kind of getting around town in style
Yeah, and having some fun.
and having some fun. Exactly.
Yeah. What are its strengths again, just to kind of reiterate?
Okay, so the strengths are the retro styling,
Right.
the fuel efficiency,
Right.
the easy-to-use transmission,
Yep.
the comfortable ride.
Okay, and the limitations?
The limitations are the top speed,
Yeah.
the small fuel tank,
Right.
and the lack of storage space.
Right, right. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I've got a question for you and for all the listeners.
Okay, shoot.
They've done a really good job, it seems, of, taking a classic design and modernizing it
Yeah,
and making it, relevant for today's rider.
yeah, I agree.
So my question is, what other classic motorcycle designs from the past do you think deserve a modern-day revival?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah, and how would you modernize them?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many cool bikes from the past,
I know, right?
I think it would be really cool to see some of them come back.
Yeah.
With modern technology.
Right, right. Well, hey, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, this is cool.
Always good to talk bikes.
Absolutely.
Uh.
All right, thanks everybody for listening.